donating its perfectly running QR. I hope to see you again, good friend. Unbolting the trans now, just got the starter off. You can see my fancy, cheap eBay, red eBay clutch. So fancy, it's red. Oh, there we go. Wow, actually, trans is relatively clean. A little bit of clutch material, but not too much. Look at that fancy red clutch. That fancy $80 clutch. Oh, that one didn't have a washer. Oh. Pressure plate surface actually looks pretty good. There's a burn or two. Not sure what that's from, but all the rivets still have good depth. So this clutch is still totally fine. Give you an up close. See, all the rivets still have a good depth to them. So, and also that weird color from heat that was there when I bought the clutch. I think they did it to make it look fancier. Who knows? So, I wasn't originally going to pull all this stuff, but the reason I decided to is the Altima. I want to put a lightweight flywheel on that as well. I don't want to run the crusty old dual mass. This one seems to be kind of okay for the QR, and it looks good. The Altima one's very rusty. It's been sitting for like 3 years now. So is the whole car. And it's got more play than that. I don't really want to use it. That car was decently fast, and if I can make it a little quicker, that'd be ideal. But flywheel for this was 150 bucks. It's 400 for the Altima. So I know what this is like with this dual mass. I want to put a single mass lightweight flywheel in, see what that's like, a fraction of the price. And if it makes a big difference, I'll go ahead with one on the Altima. So I just want to mention too that I kind of got lucky that I'm going to be able to do a single mass swap on this, because the clutch I bought for it originally, when I did the first swap on the white Sentra, I didn't know that this had a dual mass in it. So I bought an upgraded clutch, and it's a sprung disc. So that does mean technically, because the dual mass is also sprung, that I had like a twin spring system. It was more than it needed, but it also means when I bolt a single mass on here, which is an unsprung, it's just a solid piece of metal, I already have a sprung clutch disc, so I don't need to change anything, and it does make this swap a little bit cheaper. Although the swap the white car is going to get now, since it's donating its powertrain, that's not going to be cheap, but I like that car. I think it deserves it. So if you remember that exhaust pipe that the kid that owned this before me cut, that was dragging on the ground, we couldn't get up on the asphalt at the storage locker we bought it at, I knew it was going to catch on that lip. So I'm trying to get it off. I was like, all right, I'll just unbolt the downpipe from the header. Hey, is that Jeremy? I think that's Jeremy. So anyway, back to this. I was, I got to get it up the hill, so I'm kind of working on the bridge, almost in the road, but I was working on getting the header or the downpipe off, and I got one of the bolts out, and then that's when I noticed the header's cracked. Look at that. It's shattered. So yeah, that's why I don't cut your exhaust and let it drag on the ground. Also rip the O2 sensor wires. So sick. Look at that nice block hole right there. Ooh, yeah. So again, I'm not one to shit on somebody's work. Everybody starts somewhere. This fucking guy, and I'm not gonna say it's directly the previous owner, has 11 fucking drywall screws holding this side of the bumper on. You ever heard of a zip tie, my guy? They're pretty cheap. Well, the new Spec's in. I'm an idiot. Forgot to turn the camera on, but we backed it in, pushing with the tow hitch on the truck. So whatever, it's in. And it's really rusty now that I took the bumper off. So that's cool. So, getting everything out. It's going kind of well. Cotter pin and one of the shifter cables broke off, but Like I said, nothing we can't handle. Just super dirty. Got a couple more wires to disconnect here. Drop the axles and I can pull this thing out. What we're gonna do is an experiment though. You can probably see how rough these mirrors are. I mean, it looks like the surface of Mars. So Cheyenne's over here, wet sanding one of these for me while I'm doing the motor. Getting it all smooth. And then we're going to try the color that we wanted to do, which for this car I was thinking about doing a cool paint job I saw once where the kid did just gray primer and then he sanded it out nice and smooth and clear coated it, and I think it looks pretty cool. It looks something similar to like Audi's Nardo Gray, so I think I'm going to try something like that. We're going to take this mirror and we are going to do it in primer and then clear coat it and see what it looks like. If it looks good, then we'll finish the car off in it. Alright, Cheyenne got this thing sanded super smooth. We found one big scratch in it, so I applied some spot and glazing putty, and now I'm gonna go ahead and sand that down, make it ready for its first coat of paint. So the one last thing standing in my way before I pull this, like I said, that shifter cable, there's a pin stuck in it still, and the top half of it snapped off, and I can't even hammer it out. So the plan is when I drop the engine trans down onto the floor, I'll have enough room I can get in there with a drill, because right now the master cylinder is in my way, but I'll be able to get in there with a drill of the right size, drill that hole out, and then I can pull that cable off, pull the engine and trans out from underneath the car. And I just want to point out, because I think it's funny, look how much oil is accumulating off the hood. Like I said, the previous owner was like, I don't know where all the oil went because it didn't leave an oil trail. I'll tell you where it went. All over absolutely everything. Here it is. Here's all the oil. Just did the last coat of primer. Just going to give it a quick 600 grit sand before I clear coat it, just to make sure any little imperfections or anything is taken out of it, something like that, you know, before I get the clear on it. So I let it sit and harden overnight so I could touch it for filming, but a couple runs here and there because I wasn't super careful yesterday. But honestly, other than the paper towel that's stuck to it, I think it looks pretty good. Probably needs a couple more coats of clear, but it looks pretty good. See, it's almost like a Nardo Gray. So just imagine the whole car in that color. All right, now back to taking the engine out. So the engine is out. I want to admit I forgot to put ramps under the back wheels like I did on the first Spec. And having that car that high up in the air with the lift that unstable was incredibly intimidating. And I hope to never have to do anything like that again. But this greasy, disgusting mess is out. I'm going to show you the engine bay so you can see the transformation when I spray it down for the next 4.5 days until I cut through all the grease. Ugh. So push it over to the house and get the power washer out. Let's get a good look at this mess. Look at this. This is just sludge. Ugh. Just nasty. Whole wiring harness is like that. The whole engine's like that. AC compressor's like that. Everything. Oh yeah. I don't even need to push. Man, I can't even tell it's back there. Come on back, Missy. Come on back. Perfect. I got it parked over here on a jack so I can get all the mud out of the suspension too. Because again, it was in up northern PA. So, obviously, when a young kid gets a hold of it, of course it's a good idea to go off-roading in a Spec V. So I gotta do the whole bottom of the car and everything. So I got this about as clean as I could. The rest of this I'm gonna have to do with towels because the stuff's so thick. Water just doesn't even touch it. But this actually went under the biggest transformation. Cleaning out the wheel wells. I didn't even know the shocks were blue. And the underside of the car, it actually looks really good. There's really no rust. So that's actually pretty good news. Back to the barn. For that one. It's messy, but we're packed up for the night. Just here pulling off the engine mounts. Getting ready to pull the trans so I can give that a wash. But I just want to point out how exploded this thing is. For one, you can see right through it. But like, look, piston. There's a smashed piston wedged into the block. There's piston rings hanging out. That is a catastrophic explosion of metal. Look at this. Nismo and Matt showed up for the new Spec. So I just popped the dual mass off the scrap motor. And the movement this way is normal. But yeah, this thing was shot. It's a good thing I was replacing it. Yeah. Wow. So I got the surface cleaned off for the new flywheel. It's pretty light, so I don't really have any trouble holding this with one hand. So I'm not sure how high quality of a brand XTD is, but the clutch it's going back on is also an XTD clutch, and I've never had any issues with it. But fancy. Whole lot lighter than the dual mass that was on this. This was 160 bucks. It's pretty good. I think so. Alright, I got the back all wiped down. It says it was for this. This is 1" 900. Huh. That's weird. This is the flywheel from the engine from my Spec that we're putting in this car. This is the flywheel I took off. They are exactly the same. Now where the discrepancy comes in is this is what my crankshaft flange looks like. And this is what the one from the car looks like. They are totally different. This one is 1" 700 and would fit that lightweight flywheel. This one has like a 2-step and is 1" 900 and will not fit it. And I can't remember why the flanges are different, other than this engine was for an automatic. But this should be the same. So, I don't know. What's going on, everybody? Editing Seth here. I just want to point out that I just saw in editing, if you look at this pic, that The flange that was on my crank was actually for the dual mass. It's not supposed to come off of the dual mass. The dual mass flywheel in the bottom of this picture still has that flange in it. Mine is stuck on the crank. So let's go back into the past now, where Workshop Me is still trying to figure this out. So since I can't find any record on the internet of any engines that had this crank flange, looking at it very closely, looking at that and what that looks like in there, and the spacing, how there's like a little gap, and then looking at how this looks, I'm beginning to have a sneaking suspicion that this is actually a press-on piece, and then I might be able to yank that off, and then the flywheel will fit. A boy can hope. I think I'm on to something. I tapped it with a hammer and a punch a couple times. None of it lines up. That tells me that's a flange that I can pull off. And maybe this weekend I can even drive this car. Just to double check, because the bores of these dual masses looked a little bit different between this engine and this engine. I busted out my old QR crank from the first engine from the white car that I took out. This is the same size as that engine. So for 2002 to 2006, they're all the same. So that has to be a press-on flange, which is, of course, is going to be incredibly hard to get off. Yes! Awesome. I am so glad I decided to look at that closer before I had that flywheel rebored. What is this even for? The rear main seal doesn't seem to leak, and I'm not going to replace it, and I'm sure I'm going to regret that. But let the record stand right now that I said it, and I'm going to regret it. So for future me, when I'm mad that I didn't do it, be mad at me, present me. Wait, to future me, I'll be past me. I'm so happy I can actually run this. I thought I wasn't going to be able to run my lightweight flywheel. I was going to have to run a dual mass. Blah. I'm actually going to clean that up real quick. I scuffed it a little bit. The other thing that was weird is every forum says the bolts on this engine are a Torx Plus T55 or a TP55, whatever. I use Torx Plus. I don't know if it's right or not, but it fits a lot better. But mine are T50 or TP50. So yeah, don't know. Please stay. It falls in that 1 second I was gone. So if you don't have a helper and you need to tighten down some flywheel bolts and you're doing a QR, just get a 19mm socket, put it on the nut on the crank pulley, and then get it under the tensioner. It's probably not the greatest, but you know, it works. Plus it's right on the edge, so it's not going to dent the pulley. Ta-da! Jim Wolf Technology has a very similar flywheel. Their torque spec is 80 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and follow that. And let's get the clutch on. So I did all this work all at one shot because I was really excited to get this car running. So I didn't film an outro in the middle of this because I didn't know how long any of this was going to be. So it's getting a little long. I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one, and I'll talk to you all later. Yes.